like that?
Yeah, I was just sitting in front of YouTube watching professional pool on TV going, what the fuck is going on? So, turns out, voting works. It's real. As much as we fucking thought they had it rigged, as much as we thought there was shenanigans and bullshit and it's just a puppet show and there's no way anybody could buck the system, turns out voting is still real.
At least partially.
At least if it's too big to rig.
Yes.
And clearly he was too big to rig.
Yeah. Wasn't it? It was crazy because it was like for weeks, especially in the close of the campaign, it was one of those things where it felt like, it almost felt like 2008 when Obama was running against McCain, and it was just so obvious Obama was running away with this. Everything you could see and observe, his crowd sizes, the enthusiasm, the culture, it was all behind him. But at that time, the polls were reflecting what you saw everywhere. Obama's up big. He's about to. John McCain's not going to win after 8 years of George W. Bush. The country doesn't want another war hawk. They want this, articulate, young peace guy.
Right.
And it was like that with Trump, where it's like all the signs are that he's clearly running away with this. But then every single poll told you, no, this is the closest election of your lifetime. And then it was just, there was a very interesting feeling to see it and be like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. I was observing all the things I was observing.
Do you know what Trump told me about the polls?
No, what?
He's like, they're bullshit. They don't do anything. You give them money, they come back, they have these results, you don't know.
He was like, they charge $500 grand for...
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
He was right. And the media gaslit us to the absolute limits of their ability. The absolute limits. Joy Reid spent the entire time she was discussing Trump the other day comparing him to Mussolini, Stalin, Hitler, talking about a right-wing authoritarian regime, as if he had never been president for 4 years and didn't behave like any of those things.
Yeah.
As if the economy wasn't booming, as if people weren't making more money, as if we weren't involved in any new conflicts overseas, no new wars.
I mean, I could point to a lot of things Trump did in his 4 years that I think were bad, but they were things that were similar to Obama and Bush, and you know what I mean? It wasn't different.
He could point to them too. You know, when I talked to him about what it was like to actually govern for the first time ever, it's a daunting task. He was telling me about the thousands and thousands of appointments he had to make, thousands of people he had to pick. He didn't know who any of these people were. He had to trust people that he knew, and he didn't know who was telling him the truth and who was just trying to get the system moving along in the exact same direction. And he got bogged down with a lot of that shit. It took forever for them to weed it out. Which is the crazy thing about being president. It's the hardest job on the planet, and you started without any knowledge of it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, a little bit of that's on him, because there were some people who he probably should have known. What I didn't like in his answer about that to you is that then he kind of pivoted to talking about how John Bolton was actually really good to have there, because he's terrifying, and he's crazy, this guy wants war with everyone. But the problem is that, that's not how it went down. John Bolton ruined the North Korea deal. It's not like it was successful and the North Koreans were so scared of John Bolton that they wanted to talk to Donald Trump. They were at the meeting. They were willing to talk to Donald Trump. And then John Bolton came in and they were like, these guys are psychopaths. I don't want to make a deal with them. And so, and I will say, look, I was rooting for Trump last night as much as anybody in this country was.
Tony Hinchcliffe.
Okay, second most. Second to Tony Hinchcliffe. Touche.
More Puerto Ricans voted for Trump than ever by up 26%.
Well, but wasn't it? And wasn't that just one of the? It was. Look, there's obviously a huge series of these things where the Democrat establishment and the corporate media, but I repeat myself, it's death by 1,000 self-inflicted wounds. Yeah. But it is almost as if it's like their whole thing relies on lies. Right. It's just all lies. And they have their eyes shut and their fingers in their ears, and they're going, no. We're just pretending reality is the thing we want it to be.
Exactly.
They don't want to get slowed down by this force that is objective reality. And so all of it, whether it's Joe Biden's sharp as a tack, Kamala Harris's joy, Donald Trump is Hitler. Tony Hinchcliffe was a man at an event who made some comments. Like, he wasn't really, that wasn't a comedian who was ribbing everybody.
Not only that, but an insult. The comedian's famous for insulting people.
And we're supposed to act like it's not 2024. Like, we didn't all grow up on Don Rickles. And we all know exactly what Tony Hinchcliffe is doing.
Did you see the clip that the mothership posted? It's on my Instagram. So they're talking about the comedian who made jokes about Puerto Rico while Tony's on stage on the other screen. So Tony's on stage at the mothership while this guy's talking about what Tony did on CNN. And they're going over like the Puerto Rican population and how they voted.
That's so
funny.
It's so great.
We were watching it, Benson was back there. The whole green room was back. We were having the best fucking time. There should have been a camera on the green room last night, which was the greatest reality show of all time. Brian Simpson and Tony Hinchcliffe and Hassan, everybody's cracking jokes. Metzger. Look at this.
Oh, dude, that's so great. That's the...
I just said after that we're in simulation, for sure.
Yeah.
Why, hello, how you doing?
It's on the video.
How can I help?
We're in simulation.
I'll be keeping my eye on you. Goodbye.
It is just unbelievable, man. Like, the false reality that they were trying to present while you're watching what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And seeing that it's like there was just an enormous shift, like culturally, from say even 2016 to now. And I thought one of the big indicators to me, I was talking about this a bunch on my show over the last couple weeks, since the Garden event, whatever that was, a week and a half ago. And dude, there were no protesters. That to me was so hard.
It was all gas.
It was literally, I'm saying, like, if this was happening in 2016, if in 2016 Trump came to Manhattan to give a speech, there would have been, like, thousands of protesters.
I was there, actually, in 2016, when that did happen. Everyone's talking about how AI is going to change the world, but what if that's not always a good thing? What happens if insurance companies use it to jack up your premiums based on your WebMD history? What happens if HR departments use it to make hiring decisions based on your browsing history? What happens if politicians use it to sway your vote based on your online activity? I'll tell you what'll happen. You'll wish you had started using ExpressVPN today. ExpressVPN is an app that encrypts 100% of your online activity and reroutes it through secure servers. That means no one can see what websites you visit or what apps you use. Not data brokers, not shady marketers, not even your internet provider. Your private browsing data can never be used against you because it's totally off the record. ExpressVPN is incredibly easy to use, and it works on
We can get the car ready to be disassembled,
phones,
which means
laptops,
payment won't be far
tablets,
behind.
You name it. It's also extremely fast, so it won't slow down your streaming or gaming. And it even comes with a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. It's no wonder that the top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge all rate ExpressVPN as the #1 VPN on the market. So don't wait to future-proof your online privacy. Click my special link down below or scan the QR code on screen to get 3 extra months of ExpressVPN's unbeatable protection for free. Just go to expressvpn.com/RoganYT. That's expressvpn.com/RoganYT to get 3 extra months totally free. I was there the day that he won. I was there for the UFC. So the next day we're walking down the street in Manhattan and people are chanting. This guy was saying, Donald Trump, KKK, anti-black and anti-gay. He's like
Not
chanting.
a terrible chant.
It was terrible. It was the biggest cuck ever. It was like, no, the super cuck. The guy was a super cuck. He was one of those guys where you're just like, look at you. I wanted to follow him around. I'm like, you're amazing. You're a gift. Keep talking. Just let me listen to you.
Like, what's your life like after this?
2 black guys started walking towards his way. He started chanting Black Lives Matter. As soon as he saw the black guys, Black guys, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. I was like, this is amazing. I stuck right behind him. Me and Cam Haynes, and I think Tony was there too. And we were just, this is crazy. This is crazy.
But they don't seem to have that in the same way.
It's
like
all
the
bullshit.
shock troops aren't there for them anymore.
It's bullshit. First of all, back then they didn't know what he was going to do and what he did economically. Chamath has the best way of explaining it. He said it was the right message, it was the wrong messenger. But if you look at the actual actions and were they good for the economy, were they good for the United States? They were. But it's Donald Trump as the messenger was so polarizing that people lost what's really going on just based on who this guy is, who has, like, just like Tony Hinchcliffe is an insult comic, Donald Trump's entire career is, you're fired, you're a loser, Rosie O'Donnell's a loser. Like, that's his whole shtick. And you expect him to course correct once he gets into office? No, he's not. That's not who he is. You elected that guy. But along with that, now you get RFK Jr., you get Tulsi Gabbard, you get Elon Musk, and you get J.D. Vance. You get brilliant people who aren't ideologically captured, two of them who used to be Democrats. One of them that probably knows more about environmental polluting and about problems with pharmaceutical drug companies and health and the consequences of all sorts of pesticides, herbicides, ingredients in your food that should be banned but are banned in other countries. You got that guy in there now. And we got a real chance to make real change. This is like one of the first times ever where there's a real chance to make real tangible change that's going to be for the good of everybody.
Yeah, and
he's got to unite people. He's got to not attack the left, not attack everybody. Let them all talk their shit, but unite. Now it's time to unite everybody.
Well, 100%. And then there's even more guys. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yes, Vivek.
David Sachs. I mean, he's got some really smart guys who are very successful, who are really... Vivek's incredible. Just excellent and totally brilliant and so right about so many of the major issues.
Yes.
And look, I mean, Donald Trump now, he has a real mandate, which is like, this is kind of what's crazy. This isn't 2016 where, you know, he lost by several million votes in the popular vote, but won the counties that were important and just by the skin of his teeth got in. This is like, I mean, the last I looked, he was up by over 5 million in the popular vote.
Yeah, 5 million in the popular vote. And what was it when I went to bed? It was 312.
Yeah.
He had 312 electoral college votes.
Yeah, with still, I think, a few states, Arizona, I think hasn't, you know, finished yet. And so it might even rack up higher than that. But the mandate is, like, very specific. It's like the basic policies of, like, okay, immigration control. Can't just have an open border with no control of who comes into our country. A desire to get out of stupid foreign wars.
Yes.
You know, and obviously improve the economy, deal with inflation, things like that. But he's got a mandate to do that right now, and he's got some great people around him. Listen, I was rooting for him as hard as anyone except Tony Hinchcliffe last night. But I will say now, I think now till January 20th, the pressure to be on Trump to do better on the appointments than he did last time. He's got a lot of better people around him than he ever had in 2016 or 2020, but he was floating out Mike Pompeo as the Secretary of Defense, and he did have Mike Pompeo speak at his final campaign event. And just to be clear, Mike Pompeo is Liz Cheney's pick for Defense Secretary. It's Hillary Clinton's pick for the Defense Secretary. And so much of this will be lost if he puts that guy in there. He needs to keep all of the Lindsey Grahams and the Mike Pompeos and all of these guys away from his administration. Bring in the non-interventionists, man. No one wants to fight these stupid wars anymore. And that's what you ran on and won on.
Pero anda por aquí. To start a podcast.
Pregúntenle.
That I'd be fine with.
We got to get those minerals. There's some expensive minerals over there in Ukraine. Tim Dillon was doing an impression of him yesterday. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Oh, dude, I don't even like... Maybe I should... No, he deserves it. But did you ever see the thing when he was running for president? Where he was talking about...
He ran for president?
Lindsey Graham ran for president.
That's amazing.
In 2016.
Imagine
and
the
remember,
hubris.
I think Trump gave his phone number out. or something
No,
like that.
did he really?
Yeah. You don't remember that?
No.
It was like because he was like attacking Donald Trump for probably not being an awful war hawk or something like that. And Donald Trump like said something about how he used to call him and ask for money, you know, when he was running for campaign, and then he just gave his phone number out. He made a senator change his phone number. It was just so great.
That's like a Chael Sonnen move.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It's so funny.
Amazing. But he said Lindsey Graham was asked about being the first single president. Yeah, never married. And he goes, there might be a bunch of different first ladies if I was your boy. Like,
First of all, if you're a man and you're heterosexual, you say, I'm trying to find a good woman.
yeah, really.
I'm trying to just find one good woman that I can grow with and that I love with all my heart. Just one good woman. I know that she's out there. That's what you say.
Yeah, you don't.
Might be a bunch of first ladies. I'm gonna get divorced, married, and keep on scooping up them minerals in the Ukraine. I gotta give those minerals to the Russians. We're just walking around with women's panties on and shit and high heels. I'm the president.
I mean, listen, I wouldn't.
I'm the first lady too. I'm gonna wear her clothes.
I typically wouldn't go after someone for that, but when you're a war hawk, all is fair. But he's got to keep those people away from him, man. And that really was his failure in his first term. And look, I do understand him saying, I don't know, he was an outsider. He had never lived in Washington D.C. He didn't know all these people, but he's had a lot of time. This is 8 years later, and he's got a great core of people around him, and those are the people to take advice from. It's like, Mr. President,
well, they're on
if you're listening,
they're on it right now.
Well, talk to Rand Paul.
Yeah.
Rand Paul will tell you who to put in those positions. Talk to Thomas Massey. I just saw he floated out Thomas Massey for I can't remember what position it was. That's great. Put those guys in there. These are the America First guys, okay? Yeah. And it's not Mike Pompeo. It's not the war machine, dude. And also, you know, look, his rhetoric was so great on Ukraine through the election, and when he had the courage to just say, like, no, I want the dying to stop. That was one of the best moments of the entire campaign. But his rhetoric on Israel has been very bad. And the other thing that you can't get around is that, like, listen, you can love Israel all you want to, and you can pledge to help defend them or whatever. But I'm okay. But Netanyahu is John McCain. That's who he is. I mean, he's Mike Pompeo. He's Liz Cheney or Nikki Haley. He's the guy who came over and testified in 2002 before a congressional hearing and advocated that we overthrow Saddam Hussein, and also advocated that we go have a regime change war in Iran, which he still wants to this day. He advocated we had the regime change in Libya, in Syria. I mean, he's John McCain. That's not America First. That's not, you know what I mean? That's not this, we're not fighting stupid wars anymore. So love Israel all you want to, but we're not with Bibi Netanyahu. That's something else. That's the opposite of America First.
Yeah. A lot can get done here, man.
I think so.
I think he can listen to those people. He has 4 amazing people around him, you know, that really have experience. Like especially Tulsi, Congresswoman for 8 years. RFK Jr. knows it inside and out. You've got Vance, who's brilliant. You've got Vivek, who's brilliant. You got 4 incredible people with him.
Yeah, and then
I think he can get through this in a different way than he did in 2016.
I think there's real possibilities for it, and I think that's a huge component of it. The team that he's got around him, and I would also put Tucker Carlson in that camp too, because I think he is very influential on his thinking. I think in many ways he's kind of,
although he does think demons made nuclear bombs.
And look, 50-50 shot, he's right about that. I'm not saying but when it comes to policy, I'm saying he's very spot on that.
I love the guy, don't get me wrong.
No, me too. And who
he's
knows?
a little bit obsessed with demons. He said a demon attacked him. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Scratched him up.
I did see that, and I wasn't sure. When I was watching it, I was like, is this like a Halloween thing that
Jimmy,
he's doing?
why are you laughing? That's so rude. He's a victim of demons.
I don't know what happened.
That's the thing.
Why
Like,
was he asleep?
demons never really get you. You know, they're scary. Like ghosts, they never steal you.
Yeah, it's true.
Neither do aliens. They just bring you back. They always bring you back.
It's like,
They borrow you for a little bit. They freak you out.
do you think like demons are bummed about that? Like they're like, did you kill anyone today? And they're like, we can only really scratch people.
Tucker thinks aliens are demons.
Yeah, I know.
Aliens are angels and demons. He thinks it's like this idea that they come from outer space is stupid. He said he thinks they've been here all along. This is like legit scientists that entertain this.
Yeah, I'm not convinced of that, but I do think I think he's great on war and immigration.
He is. He's a brilliant guy.
But I do think another huge component of why Trump's got such an opportunity right now is because, like, you see it where, like I was saying, the protesters aren't there anymore. There's a whole lot of really interesting reasons, I think, for why that is. But also, and I was getting in an argument on Twitter the other day with Michael Tracy, who I do like and respect very much. But I was basically saying that I think this is going to be a death blow for the corporate media if Donald Trump wins again. And this is almost the best thing about him winning again. And he was saying, which is a reasonable argument, but I disagree with him. But he was saying, well, no, Dave. I mean, look, last time he was in for 4 years, that was the best thing that ever happened to CNN and MSNBC. And they got a big ratings boost when he was in. But I don't think that's going to work again.
I don't think it's going to work either.
Well, the thing is that so much of that ratings boost was completely driven by the Russiagate nonsense.
Right.
And what they were telling you at the time was that they had the biggest scandal in the history of the United States of America. Like, you can't overstate how big that story is. I mean, they were telling you, yeah, right, if it wasn't all completely made up. But they're reporting that a hostile foreign power has overturned our election, and the sitting president of the United States of America is in on it. He is involved in a conspiracy with a hostile foreign government. Like, that's the biggest scandal in the history of America. And they, for anybody who wasn't aware at the time of how fake and evil the entire system is, they were like, well, look, they got a special prosecutor on the president. I mean, there must be something there. And hey, I just heard the chair of the House Intelligence Committee tell me he's seen the evidence and that he's guilty of this. And you had the former CIA director, John Brennan, saying that Trump and his family are going to be hauled off in handcuffs on television once Mueller's investigation concludes. And so for the regular person, especially for the regular person who really hated Donald Trump, it was pretty easy to get sucked into that. But after that was exposed for being a giant fake, and then the big one is COVID. I just don't think they can recover.
Let's pause here. No repercussions.
Yeah.
You want to talk about misinformation? We have to censor social media because of misinformation.
Right.
You guys spread misinformation to the biggest news organization, the biggest news audience in the world.
Yeah.
And you did it for 3 years.
Yeah.
You did it for 3 years, and then when it turned out that it wasn't true, you never apologized.
And didn't just turn out it wasn't true, but turned out it was actually
Funded by Clinton.
Well, it started as opposition research.
Yeah.
And then the intelligence agencies jumped on that and decided, knowing that it was all bullshit, decided to use it to frame the sitting president of the United States of America of treason. And listen, a few episodes back, one time we went real deep into this, but that claim this is just a fact. They lied on the FISA court application to spy on Carter Page, who was a low-level advisor for Donald Trump, just an excuse to spy on Trump's campaign. And they lied to the FISA court. They omitted the fact that the CIA had already told them that Carter Page wasn't a spy and that he was working with them and that he was one of their good guys. As the FBI went to the CIA and they were like, we have information that says that the Russians approached Carter Page. And the CIA said, yeah, we know. He came and told us immediately because he's working with us. And then what they put on the FISA application is they said, we believe that the Russians approached him, and the CIA confirmed that was true.
Whoa.
So which is technically true. It's a lie by omission.
You're omitting the fact that he went straight to them to tell them.
Exactly. So that was, by the way, the only guy who actually got charged was the FBI guy who submitted that application. But so,
well, that's good.
But look, when you said there were no ramifications, right? You're right in the sense of like legally, or people getting fired.
The news media.
Yes, but I'm saying this is the ramification. The ramification is that they're not going to be able to pull it off again. Right. And the ramification is that, look, they did everything they could to tell you this was a Nazi. This was the end of democracy. Yeah. He incited an insurrection, and the American people said, we already get that you're full of shit.
They cried wolf.
Yeah, too many times.
Way too many times. Way too many times. The Joy Reid stuff was working for Trump. It was working for Trump. When she's calling him a right-wing dictator, comparing him to Mussolini and Stalin. And then when Oprah said that if Trump wins, you may never be able to vote again. That is
just so
the craziest thing when you go back and watch him on her show. where she was encouraging him to be president.
I'm starting to think Mr. Rubio has
I saw it, and then I saw when you played it fairly recently. That's right. Well, here's what changed. All of a sudden, well, he became the guy who wasn't just funding a lot of politicians and being like a famous guy, and he became the guy who was calling all of them out and threatening to drain the swamp. And that's really was his crime, is that he threatened the DC power establishment.
But it's crazy how many rich and famous people stepped in line to help them take him out.
Yep.
Like,
Well-
so many famous, influential people. And I give a pass to Cardi B. I give a pass.
yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I don't think Amber Rose knows what Trump's real policies are. You know what I'm saying? I
Yes.
give a pass to some celebrities that come out. But then when you have some of them that are making videos, all the Avengers get together. Like, hey, you trying to get me to hate superhero movies? You trying to show me your real fucking weird personalities and get me to hate superhero movies? Why are you doing that? If I was running the Avengers, I'd be like, hey guys, cut the shit. Do you think one fucking person is gonna vote for Kamala Harris because they saw that Iron Man wants them to vote for Kamala Harris? Are you fucking crazy?
Well, it's so. Look, man. I mean, did they think that one Puerto Rican's vote was going to be flipped because of a joke that Tony made?
By the way, Puerto Ricans are known for being great insult comics.
Yeah.
Like Luis Gomez, great insult comic.
Yep.
The fucking Freddie Prinze Jr. was a great comic. Puerto Rico has a history of great comics. They can talk some shit. If you grew up in New York at all, you know, Puerto Ricans can talk a lot of shit.
Lewis is one of the best shit talkers I've ever met. Also, garbage.
But it's
So
also,
Tony
it's
had a point.
Like Italians.
Yeah.
And I'm Italian. Italians and Puerto Ricans have a lot in common, that we talk a lot of shit to each other, so we don't get insulted that much by jokes. It's not the same thing.
Right.
Like, it's very hard to insult an Italian and have it stick.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You
Yeah.
can call him a Guido, like, yeah, I'm a Guido. You can call him a greaseball, no one cares. You know what, go back to your country. No one's been in fucking generations.
It's also, my wife is Italian, and all my in-laws, their whole family is Italian, and it is like, when you have a dinner, it's just everyone yells.
They're animals.
Like, everything's a yell. Like, I'll literally, my brother-in-law, who I love, is a great guy, super smart, but he will, if he's agreeing with you in a conversation and you were like in the next room, you would be like, is he about to fight his brother-in-law? Like, what's going on in there? No, he's just agreeing with what I'm saying, but he's screaming it at me, you know? But it is a thing where they're very thick-skinned. They're not like fragile people. It's one of my favorite things
Puerto
about them.
Ricans,
Puerto Ricans are
some of
the same
best.
way.
Also, look at Puerto Rico. Some of the best boxers of all time came out of Puerto Rico. It's one fucking island. You got Felix Trinidad. You got Gomez, Wilfredo Gomez. You got incredible fighters came out of this one place. You have a fucking tough population, man.
Yeah.
It's not the. I mean, I'm sure there was a few people that were pissed off at that joke, but the reality is, this is one of the things that helped Tony, is that joke was based about Tony's concern for the environment. Tony is obsessed with recycling. He's like, you know, recycling's bullshit. You know, it all goes in a landfill. I'm going to put it in the blue bin. It all goes in the landfill. So Tony was obsessed with the Pacific garbage patch, and then he got obsessed with Puerto Rico because they don't have any room. So their landfills are just overflowing with garbage. They literally have a giant garbage problem. So he came up with a joke based around that. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
I was texting with him after it, and I thought it was so great. I mean, I thought even the bit that he did on Israel Palestine was so funny. He ripped both sides, and then he did. By the way, same with the Puerto Rico thing. There was an underlying really good point to it, which is always like the best comedy, when you're just being funny, but at the same time you're like, ow. And he did kind of nail that too, where he was just like, why are we funding wars that have been going on forever? Like, figure it out, guys. Yeah. And then he just got a great rip on Muslims, a great rip on Jews, and so the way they picked out Puerto Ricans.
He's going on in the morning. There's no opening act. No one knows there's going to be comedy.
Yeah, the most difficult setup.
And there's no one on before him other than a prayer. They do a prayer. They were singing prayers and songs. And then the music stops, and Tony goes on flat to a bunch of people in the middle of the day.
Well, yeah,
the lights are on bright. It makes no sense. It's the worst setup of all time for comedy.
I remember in real time when I was watching it, like being like, I was like, well, I mean, Tony's not going to be able to do Tony in this setup, so like, I wonder what he's going to do. And then like as it starts, you're like, oh, he's just going to do Tony.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy, dude.
It's crazy.
Good for him.
It's the
that's
nuttiest
ballsy.
thing. Should have never done it. But the fact that he did it, whatever. It's like, listen, man, there's going to be some people that tried to capitalize on that, and that was a big thing. Like AOC really mobilized, which is funny because I'm almost certain that AOC's been to see Kill Tony.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, almost certain. Almost certain.
Wait,
that
here
she's
at the
been in
mothership?
I don't think so here, but somewhere saw Kill Tony.
She probably loves it. They're all so phony.
I wonder who. Let's call him up.
All right, let's get to the bottom of it. Wait, we have access.
Call Tony Hinchcliffe. Hey, dude, you're live. You're live on the air right now with Dave Smith. I need to answer a question. I need a question answered. Did AOC ever come to see Kill Tony?
She says that she did, but we're almost positive that she didn't. I never met her in any of the shows.
All our
in LA.
operators are on call.
I mean, she could have conceivably bought a ticket to Madison Square Garden, but she never posted about it.
Well, she probably wouldn't post about it. It's too sketchy. Your show's sketchy. But so how do you know that
calling
she
for some
says that
wheels?
she was there?
I'm Johnny on the spot. I'll hook you up.
She tweeted that she's been to a taping. When all that stuff went down, she said that she's disappointed in me, and she's been to a taping. I can't remember the exact tweet right now, but it was the day of the Madison Square Garden Trump thing. She posted, "I'm really disappointed."
It's on the way.
in Tony Hinchcliffe.
I'll get back to it then.
I'm a fan of Kill Tony and have been to a taping, something like that. I don't want to misquote her, like she would certainly do to me.
But she's been there and she was surprised? It makes no sense.
Nothing these people fucking say make any sense. They're out of their goddamn minds. And now their voices are quieted, thank God.
Tony, America's back, baby. America's back!
Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go. I gotta go, brother. I love you.
Rock and roll. Bye-bye.
Nobody who's ever been to Kill Tony would be disappointed.
It didn't matter.
That
It
doesn't
was a
make any
political tool. It's like if
Of
you
course.
have a wrench, here's a bolt. I need to use the wrench. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Like so, AOC was telling people, send it out in all your group chats, let people know. It's not. They're not.
But you
They're
can't.
not the most sensitive people. They're like resilient people. They're not gonna. People are gonna get upset about a joke, but they're also gonna understand it's just a fucking joke. And then when they know, and then if someone does know, oh, Puerto Rico really does have a giant garbage problem. Like it's a giant problem, overflowing land. You ever see it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. Look at the images. You're like, oh my god, you gotta do something about this. You can't cover your island in garbage. This is nuts.
Yeah, I just, like I was saying before though, man, I feel like if you zoom out, like if you look at it closely, you would be like you said with the, oh yeah.
She's been to shows. Wow. Before people try to act like this is some PC, overly sensitive nonsense, which is what it is. I've been to Kill Tony shows. I'm from the Bronx. I don't give a shit about crude humor.
Well,
What do you do?
clearly
Don't
you
pretend
do.
that your support for Trump is a joke. Own it. You're doing a set to support him. That's a choice. Listen, you guys have a real problem with someone disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
And you want to, in any way, shape, or form that's possible, turn that person into a demon. You never want to have someone who has an opposing perspective that should be considered or maybe countered with better information, which is what we're all supposed to be doing. Ideally, with people of good character and who go into arguments with good faith, you should be able to respectfully disagree and have conversations with things. This is like everybody who thinks one way is bad. Everybody who thinks this way is good. We'll do whatever we can to destroy the people that are that way. Obama, there was a guy at the Trump rally that said that Puerto Rico's a pile of garbage. Those are human beings. Like, was that?
on,
Hey,
dude.
was that guy maybe telling a joke?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Is he telling a joke?
Well,
Do you know what jokes are? You're my age. You know what jokes are? What are we doing?
Come on.
Come on, bro.
Like we
What are we doing?
We all grew up on like in the America of Howard Stern and The Simpsons and all this stuff. It's not like jokes are foreign to any of us.
Yeah, we all forgot about Superbad.
Yeah,
we
like,
we
what-
forget about Tropic Thunder. Do we forget how those
right.
things work?
Right. And you know, and her point is so stupid. I mean, she's like, "Hey, you're a Trump supporter. Own it. it's like, yeah, he's speaking at a Trump event at Madison Square Garden.
Has nothing to do with the
But I'm
joke.
saying just the fact that he's there clearly already says, yeah, I'm supporting this guy. And then he's a comedian, so he's like, I'm going to do what I do here with it. You know, and if
Exactly.
if AOC wanted to come out and say something like, she'd go, listen, I'm actually a fan of Tony. I really like the show Kill Tony.
That joke
I don't
was
think
fucked up.
She goes, I don't think it's appropriate at a political event
And
to
she'd be
have an
right.
insult comic. That'd be a reasonable thing to
Yeah,
say.
she'd
Okay,
be
fine.
correct.
But
I don't think it was
again,
appropriate.
yes, but that's kind of
fucking
that's on the
babies in the crowd.
campaign. That's on the
Yes.
campaign. That's not on
100%.
Tony. You know what I mean? And like, so, but that's not what she's saying. And again, it's like, you know, look, if you, to the point you were making before, right, about the Russia collusion hoax and no one getting in trouble for it. If you were to look at, say, the weapons of mass destruction lie that got us into war in Iraq, killed
Yeah.
1 million people, cost trillions of dollars, and tens of thousands of our bravest young men blowing their brains out, you know, just an unmitigated disaster. And none of the people who sold that lost their jobs or are, you know, they're not like, I don't know what they should be doing. Maybe like picking up garbage by the side of the road, apologizing to every car that passes them.
Well,
I don't know.
Let's pause for a second and compare. There's people that said that there was weapons of mass destruction. They willfully created this story. It's a fake story.
100%.
No one got in trouble. Trump paid off some lady, says he fucked her,
Yep.
and made a bookkeeping error. So he got hit with 34 felonies.
Yep.
Now, if you want to just be that person that says he's a convicted felon and just repeat it over and over again, understand that now you're changing what the law means because you don't like the guy, and that can be used on you. This is what happens in dictatorships. This is what happens when communism takes over a country and you get a military dictatorship. They just throw the laws at you, and they're doing it right in front of your face, and you're okay repeating it. He's a convicted felon. He's a convicted felon. He's a convicted felon for 34 misdemeanors, which are all the same thing.
Which weren't really felonies.
Which weren't felonies, and we're past the statute of limitations. So
Yes.
how much do you hate freedom?
Yeah, it's not. Listen, none of the Trump legal charges were an example where, look, the former president of the United States of America clearly broke the law. And we don't want to politicize, you know, the legal system here, but it's so obvious he broke the law that we have to prosecute him. It was, we're coming up with a novel legal theory that we've never prosecuted anyone under before. And if you interpret it this way, then we could interpret this misdemeanor that's past the statute of limitations as a felony. So
Now, how does this not freak out liberals who are obsessed with criminal reform?
because that's not
Do you
their
know how
side
nutty
of the
that is?
issue.
Just think about how nutty
It
that
is. It is.
One of the best things that I do on the show is when I have Josh Dugan on, who used to work at the Innocence Project,
Mm-hmm.
you know, does things on his own, where they're trying to find people that have been unfairly prosecuted by bad judges and by bad prosecutors and get them out of fucking jail.
Oh, can I just say real quick, dude, because if I don't, I want to make sure I say this while we're here, but to President-elect Donald Trump, dude, he came to the Libertarian Party convention this year, and he promised us, and a whole bunch of people, myself included, like, supported him for this. He did carry, I think, the Libertarian vote. He promised us he was going to free Ross Ulbricht on day one. And, like, if you're listening, Mr. President, if this gets to you, please come through on that promise, man. This kid has done over a decade in jail already. He was guilty of creating a website. You know, it was like a dark web type thing, and I guess some people sold drugs on it and stuff. But he's done 10 years, over 10 years.
Yeah, have you ever seen the documentary on that?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Because it does seem,
I know his mom.
it seems like he was real.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, it seems like they came up with some sort of a phony murder for hire charge.
Well, they accused him of that, but then they withdrew that charge. He was
Please
never
watch
convicted
where
of
you're
that.
going.
He got life without parole for making a website. And I've gotten to know his mother, Lynn, over the years, and she's like the sweetest lady, and she's just in the middle of this nightmare. Like, her whole life has been a nightmare for the last 11 years or whatever it's been. And I really just, please come through on that one. There's no political capital even to be spent on it. It's one of the best things he did when he was president last time was, you know, freeing people who were just in jail on BS and way over prosecuted. And he said he was going to do it on day one, and I'm just saying a lot of people supported him for that. I really hope he comes through. That would be amazing.
Well, we're going to know a lot about what he's going to do, whether he comes through or not.
Yeah.
That'll tell us a lot. If he comes through, I think a lot of people will be able to hear. I mean, wouldn't you love to see him on a podcast? Wouldn't you love to talk to him on a podcast?
Would love to, yeah.
And ask him questions about what actually happened.
Yeah.
Well, look, now that we know what we know now, like the FBI did this whole internal thing with him, and they used people and agents to trap him. But now what we know about what they did with the kidnapping case for Gretchen Whitmer, we didn't know that before. We didn't know that you could have a kidnapping case where there's 14 people and 12 of them are FBI informants. So you got 12 people working with the FBI, 2 retards.
Sure.
And you convince these dumbasses that they should go and kidnap the fucking governor, and they're like cosplaying. These guys are idiots. They might have been playing fucking game of Dungeons and Dragons in the woods. They're idiots.
Well, there's an old saying.
They're gullible people.
There's an old saying. It goes something like, "The FBI always gets their man because it's always their man."
Yeah.
You know, it's like, dude,
of
there's been dozens and dozens of these FBI, what they call sting operations, which are really entrapment since 9/11, where they get, we thwarted another terrorist attack.
So
but no, they didn't thwart a terrorist attack. They planned a terrorist attack and then thwarted it. Like, it was never going to happen. By the way, a little note on that, every single time, I always find this fascinating, every time the FBI wants to do one of these terrorist entrapment things, which again, they've done dozens and dozens of since 9/11, every time when they approach like young Muslim guys who are like on radical websites or something like that, every time, they never go up there and they say, hey, how do you feel about America being free and prosperous? Or how do you feel about the fact that we don't have Sharia law here or anything? They never do that. They always go, how do you feel about American foreign policy? Look at all these innocent Muslims that we're killing over there in that part of the world. Doesn't that make you angry? Doesn't that make you want to do something about it? You see, like when the FBI wants to do entrapment, all of a sudden they know what motivates terrorism. They're not like, oh, you hate us for our freedom, or the dumb shit that they say to the American public. They know exactly how to entrap these people. They go, how do you feel about all these Palestinian babies getting killed right now? You know, that's America's money and weapons that are doing it, and that's how they get them. But you look at the first World Trade Center attack, was all just the FBI screwed it up.
Yeah.
They were following it the whole time.
Yeah.
And then they screwed it up, and they almost took down the towers.
And if we got to hear Ulbricht's story, I bet it'd be
amazing.
Wildly different than the narrative that we heard in the courtroom or it was in the documentary. I bet it's wildly different. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got railroaded. Just that we know too much now. We know about that case. There's multiple different cases. There's the Dallas case where they got that kid to blow up a building. They gave him a fake bomb and a cell phone, and he activated. They radicalized that kid. He was just a dumb, low IQ kid that's 19, fucking gullible. And they talked him into joining, and here's what we're going to do. And then they say they're preventing crime. Like, you're actually making it. You're making it and then stopping it. And that's fucking wrong. You're cheating. You're rigging the pinball game, man. You fucking, and we know that now. So it would be really interesting to hear his story. Yeah, 10 years is fucking plenty. Too much. Yeah. Way too much.
No, you can never give that back to him. Yeah. But, like, just let him go free. And it's also just such a situation where you just, and obviously, like, I know his mother, so I'm like, I'm kind of personally invested in it. But it's like, this kid is no threat. It's that nobody thinks like, oh, if we let him out, he's some type of violent criminal who might do another violent thing or something like that. Like, that's just not going to happen. You could just end the nightmare that this sweet woman is going through, and him, of course, too.
Okay, so we both agree on this, but let me ask you, what about Snowden? Do you think he has the balls to pardon Snowden?
Well, okay, so the thing about Snowden, is that, and now the Julian Assange case has kind of been taken off the table, even though I guess technically he could still pardon him. But that takes real political capital. Now, I think he should pardon Snowden.
How so?
But, well, I'm just saying that, like, Snowden pissed off a lot of very powerful people. The NSA are furious about him. The CIA, they don't like him. And they do not want to set the precedent that you can release the fact that we're doing a bunch of illegal shit that we are lying to the American people about, and then you can go tell them that we are, in fact, doing the thing that we lied and said we weren't doing. They don't like that. There's going to be powerful forces that'll oppose you. Ross Ulbricht doesn't. It's not like that.
No, I completely understand. But
if he were to pardon Snowden, that would be a real signal that he is willing to take on the deep state. He's willing to take on the real powerful entrenched interests. Now, again, I'm not claiming to. It's obviously the right thing to do, morally speaking, but you got to have a really smart strategy if you're actually going to do this. You know, I remember one time during the Ron Paul presidential campaign, I think it was in 2012, and someone asked him, you know, like a question about, like, when you're in there and you're president, are you going to tell the CIA, like, hey, you guys are done, and you're this, and you're this? And he went, well, I might say it a little bit nicer than that. He was like, listen, I am trying to abolish the CIA, but let's be cool here.
Well, let's just let's look at this for what it is. So if Edward Snowden, if he really did expose things that were illegal, that were not supposed to be done, and the fear of bringing him back is that the people that did the illegal things want to continue doing illegal things and don't want to have any repercussions for doing illegal things. That seems like a crazy thing to support, even for them to defend it. Sounds insane. They should want internal accountability. They should want to make sure that no one colors outside the lines, no one does anything without congressional approval, all the stuff you're supposed to do when you're doing certain things. But the problem is now with the FDAA and FISA and all these different laws that have been passed that allow surveillance to be done warrantless. Like, it's kind of a moot point almost at this point. Like, the things that you would, like, back then he exposed that they could listen to every call, they have data centers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all know that now. Like, it's everything's still functioning, but we all know that now. The guy that exposed all that, leave him alone. You guys you're doing illegal shit, and now it's kind of legal, and we still should be outraged, but now you can kind of just do it.
Yeah. Well, and also, and one of the things that was so disappointing about Trump not pardoning Julian Assange and Snowden in his first term, and again, a lot of that is because it's like when he told you, why didn't he release the JFK files? Well, because he was listening to Liz Cheney's pick for defense secretary, Mike Pompeo. People convinced him not to do it. But it's like, at a certain point, you're like, okay, first of all, the spying that Snowden exposed was weaponized against you.
Right.
You're like, they spied on you. So you kind of, I would think you have some, like, stake in being like, yeah, that should be exposed and should be abolished.
But don't you think he didn't pardon him because he wanted a second term and he wanted to, like,
I think
make
that was
things run as smoothly as possibly and try to
The thing is, he also
compromising. They're making deals here.
Yes, but he also had a lame duck period. I mean, he had a period where he knew he wasn't going to have a second term and still had the power, but he was worried about the impeachment.
And he wanted to run again.
Yes.
He always wanted to run again. He was going to run again. He was like,
I think so. Yes.
Fuck you, I'm running again.
Yes. So there's a fair point to that. Maybe now Donald Trump gets in, and I do think this is what the corporate media and all of them are really terrified about, is that now he gets in and he doesn't need to win another election. I mean, he'd like to win a midterm election and keep he's got the Senate now. We'll see. The House hasn't been determined yet, but he'd like to keep, congressional control within the Republican Party. But he doesn't need to worry about a re-election now. If he really wanted to be the drain the swamp guy, he's got an opportunity now where a lot of things have aligned, where it's like, I think he could really get it done, and I think he could get away with that. I think that he's taken all their bullets, both literally and metaphorically. He's been convicted of felonies. He's been shot at. He's like all the things that already happened. He's been demonized in a way that no public figure has been demonized in any of our lifetimes.
And he
survived all of it.
More popular.
Yes, he's stronger. He's stronger than he's ever been.
What do you think about that thing I sent you today that compares the number of people who voted in 2020 versus the number of people who voted in 2004 and 2016?
Sure does look strange.
In 2012. Have you seen it, Jamie?
That is a fair point. There are still votes out there. I'd like to take a look at that again after 100% of everybody has been reported, but it does certainly seem weird.
Let's not do it. I'm going to tell you this, Jamie, because it's so bizarre that I can't really believe it's real. Remember this earlier today? It's so as much people voted in 2020, if not more, probably more. But let's look at the numbers. Like, look at the difference in how many people voted for Biden in 2020. It's unprecedented. Since 2012, and I'm sure probably before that, there's less people back then, right? So if you go back to when I was a kid, there was only like 200 million people in this country.
Yeah, and to be clear, 2012 and 2016 were not low turnout years.
No, they're consistent. This is what's crazy. They're consistent. Look, they're all up 60. Is that what it says? So that's all the same. Every fucking time, except 2020. In 2020, it goes way the fuck up. Look at it. It's like 81. Is that what it was? So it goes up all at once.
And it does seem like even with getting all the other votes in, you're not going to get to
But it's also like, look how many votes Trump got. He got even more in 2020 than he did in 2022. Like, what the hell is that? Is that because I haven't counted all the votes yet? He made this? Or is that the reality of the numbers? Because that doesn't make sense either.
Yeah. I just the media world, it's like this is the biggest crime ever to even ask this question, which you kind of can't blame us for asking it when everything you say is a lie.
The balance that came from the and the fact that there's the thing about manual balance is different than anything else. It's not chain of custody. Right? This guy drops it off and the postman gets it. They used to be postal. Postmen used to be scary because they shoot a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I don't know how they fixed that, but there
Yeah,
was,
they did stop.
Yeah, there was a time they were like fucking separating things by zip codes, like they were just killing somebody, if you're a captain from some other country, maybe $500 to drop off these ballots. When you're doing like low-level scams in like small counties, where you have corrupt people, pay attention to the corrupt Republicans. There's always been election fraud. To pretend that we lie about the very fine people, he said the very fine people on both sides. Obama's lying about the whole world. They lie about everything. You don't think they would cheat?
Well, that's exactly. Every word that comes out of your mouth is a lie.
Right.
That you can't tell me that I'm not allowed to suspect. And also, you know, if it's like if what Rachel Maddow says is real, right? Like if you're telling me the world is essentially that it looks like it's important to look at it was 50-50. Turns out it wasn't. But Adolf Hitler's running this is the end of democracy. It's on the ballot. We'll never have elections again if this guy wins. So if that's true, then why wouldn't somebody who's got a bunch of ballots do that? If Adolf Hitler was about to win, I'd cheat to make sure. If Adolf Hitler's about to win, you should do anything you can. So you're going to tell me on the one hand Adolf Hitler's about to take over America, and on the other hand, no one would ever cheat. No one would ever break the rules to stop Hitler. The conversation that people, the dumb conversation is, would you murder a baby if that baby was Adolf Hitler? You know what I mean? Like that's the pop question that people ask about Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
And I think the implied correct answer is yes. You're supposed to say I would murder baby Hitler.
Wait till he's 17.
Yeah, probably feel a little bit better about yourself.
Yeah, by the time he's 17.
And you could run a real good experiment of like nurture versus nature, like raise them well, be nice. Yeah, there you go.
Fix that little fucker.
But anyways, but you're saying someone with, it's also, it's like, it's not even just that they're liars who are in the business of propaganda. It's that it's incoherent propaganda. Your propaganda doesn't even make sense. Like, if propaganda point A is true, then propaganda point B is impossible to be true. And one of the things that I'm so happy that Trump wrote about, you know, is that she just needed to lose. There's a certain line that they crossed that you're like, we need to be in a country where that doesn't work. Like, that can't work.
But
it's just too far.
Here's one of the most important precedents. You can't have someone that's running that didn't go through a primary.
Yeah.
You have to at least go through and respect the process of allowing us to pick who our representative is. No one would have picked her. She didn't. When she was trying to run for president, Tulsi Gabbard nuked her out of orbit, and that was it for her. She dropped off a cliff, and that was done. And that's how it should have been until Biden picked her as his vice president. Get away from that. You should always have a primary. Like, if you really believe in the democratic process and if you really believe in the Democratic Party, you should want the best representative of your party as voted for by the population.
100%. And then
that you can't have someone bypass that because then you have a complete puppet.
100%. And then in addition to that, just think about how crazy this is. You're going to bypass the democratic process, and then you're running on democracy is on the ballot.
Right.
I mean, this is just too much.
Amazing.
It's too much. You want to, like, punch yourself in the face. Like, you can't do that to me. You
so
can't say
awesome.
that.
Well, they've been so used to doing it before. They had full, complete control of the narrative because they own the media. And they own the media for so long. They had the run of the roost for so long that they got cocky. And they didn't pay attention to the game as it was evolving. They're like a UFC 1 fighter that, you know, takes time out of the gym and then steps into 2024 and tries to compete against guys of today. Like, you missed the game. The game is way past where you were. And you guys are still doing goofy shit, like taking people out of context and not knowing that people are going to make YouTube clips showing what he actually said versus you. And it's going to undermine your credibility even more. I used to, Obama was my favorite president. He was the best spokesman, other than Clinton, of all time. Now I think he's a liar. I look at that thing of him saying, he said there's very fine people on both sides. That's not what he said. He said, I'm not talking about the KKK and white supremacists. They should be condemned.
It was so clear.
So
he made
clear.
it totally clear. And what he was saying was that there were very fine people on both sides of the arguments about tearing statues down.
Yes.
Like, he was saying, look, it's reasonable that there are some people who are like, no, this is our history, we want to keep it up. And then there's other people who are like, this represents slavery or something like that, we want to take it down. And then, first off, it was clear when he said it that that's what he meant. And then they asked him a follow-up question. Are you saying the white supremacists are very fine people? He goes, no. How many times do I need to say that?
Yes.
No,
That's all
I am
right
not
there.
saying that any of the white supremacists, and like, that's not enough.
And then there was a sneaky thing that they used to do. They would ask him, will you disavow white supremacy? Will you disavow white supremacy? Like, what are you talking? First of all, that's like saying to someone, like, will you any crime that you would never do? Like, will you disavow murder? Like, of course I'll disavow murder. Oh, well, all of a sudden you're implicated in something where you have to disavow murder. Like, you're connected somehow or another to murder now. Dave Smith, under any circumstances, do you disavow murder? You're like, I'm not murdering anybody. What the fuck are you saying?
And so after he had done it like maybe 100 times, no exaggeration, they'd go, now you still haven't disavowed white supremacy. And he'd be like, no, I have.
Over and over again.
Now, but to your point, which I think is a really good one, and I think I love the analogy for people who are MMA fans. It really is like, it's like someone coming into MMA in 2024 and being like, I'm a jiu-jitsu specialist, I've never trained wrestling or striking.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, that's not going to work anymore. Like, I know that worked in 1993, but like, that's not going to work. They have not adapted to the new world that we're living in now. And you saw there was a lot of evidence of this. Like, these things that used to work now come with a heavy price. So one of the things that politicians used to do in general was that they would give the same stump speech everywhere they go. Message discipline is what it's called, and you always stay on message. And this is the idea, is that you're never going to get your message out there unless you say the same thing over and over again to everyone. But now we have the internet, and you have these compilations of Kamala Harris saying she's from a middle-class family like 75 times in a row, and you just look like a psychopath. You're like, oh, what are you... So now there's like a cost to playing the game in the old way, but they don't adjust. And Trump, whether even intentionally or not, was always just kind of like, oh, well, I just speak off the cuff. So I don't do that. You know, like, I mean, he's got themes that he hits a lot, like all of us kind of do.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that, and he did. And Donald Trump, one of the brilliant things, and man, I mean, I can't believe I haven't just asked you this already about this, but one of the really brilliant things that Donald Trump did, which obviously, look, RFK did it, and Vivek Ramaswamy, I think both, like, they recognize, like, we're in a new landscape here, and there are these shows on the internet that have much bigger audiences than these traditional shows. Oh, and by the way, I get to go long, and I can really give an in-depth, you know, like, point on every single topic. And, dude, I mean, I'm coming on board, and her refusing to
is the only way. But it is not the kind of equipment you buy on the store. It is the kind of equipment you steal from private military contractor. They're called Merriweather, and they are running tests on their new submarine and its sonar deflector. I have location of the test, but my sonar is blank for this
And I
area.
did ask him questions
This is a
that I
good
wanted
sign.
answers to, like this proof that he lost in 2020. He did not provide me with that. And I've said, and we talked about it in depth yesterday, that if I was accused of election denying, which election denial, it's like, there's Holocaust deniers, number one, and then there's maybe vaccine denier and election denier. Election denier is probably a little higher than vaccine denier. You could be a kook and a vaccine denier but still believe that Donald Trump lost the election. But election denier, you're cast out of the kingdom. There's a couple other ones that go underneath that, but those are the big ones. Those are the big ones. And you get put into a box like instantaneously. I was put in that box. I would have responses to every question. I would say, well, in Georgia, there was blah, 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 ballots that were blah, blah, blah. These people were dead. These people, they should have never been voting in the first place. They were not United States citizens. I would have all the information ready to fire. And he didn't. He was like, there's books that tell you that. I have the suspicion that he's way busier than me. And I can barely pay attention to things.
Yeah.
Sometimes I agree to do things. My wife tells me we're going to do something. What are we talking about? She goes, you said yes to it yesterday. I did. When? We were making coffee. I wasn't paying attention. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Where are we going? You know, but that's just normal life stuff, right? This guy is literally running for fucking president. He's got, what, all these golf courses everywhere, and businesses everywhere, and Mar-a-Lago, and fucking family. There's millions of things. So probably they told him the election was stolen. He told me, find the results, find it, let's get it overturned, these fucking criminals. I don't know how much he really looked into it. I don't know. I don't know how much he studied it, because
He didn't really have an answer for
I
it.
would want you to regurgitate it fact by fact, and I think Vivek could do that. If you ask Vivek a question about that, if you ask J.D. Vance a question about that, I bet if they were accused, they would be able to rattle off all those numbers and statistics.
I think that Vivek probably would make the claim exactly in the same way
No,
that
I'm
Donald
saying
Trump
if he was
is.
accused.
Yeah, oh yeah,
If he was
sure.
accused.
Well, yeah, no, Vivek isn't going to say anything without having like a
100%.
detailed answer to it.
Nor
That's
is-
not Trump. That's not
Nor is
Trump.
J.D.
Yes, listen, Trump is different than Vivek and JD. He's a different type of animal.
There was so much evidence.
Well, the thing is, one of the things that was really interesting moments of your show with him was that you weren't asking it the way CNN would ask it. You weren't badgering it. You were after having a very honest, good faith conversation for a while. You were asking in good faith, like, what's the evidence? Look, I think the
Do you
truth is
see the
that his
helicopter and
lawyers
patrol
made
boat?
a lot
They
of
must be
outlandish
above the
claims.
submarine.
None of
Dive,
those
dive,
things.
dive.
Essentially what he has, in terms of the argument, I think is kind of what we have. Sure does seem weird to me that 80 million plus people voted for Joe Biden, and the regime was so working against him in every other way. Like, Glenn Greenwald, I think is one of the absolute most brilliant people out there.
I agree.
His work is incredible.
I love that guy.
I love the way he goes, that he goes, that they stole the election from him, but they clearly rigged the thing against him. And then just kind of goes through all the censorship, the Hunter Biden story, the media. And so in that environment, it's very easy. You know, the analogy that I use, I think I may have said this before to you, but it's almost like if there's a guy who's like cheating on his wife all the time, and then one day she's like, last Friday you didn't answer your phone when you were out. I know you were cheating on me. And she's wrong. He wasn't cheating that Friday.
Right.
Like, she's kind of right, even though she's wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, she might get the detail wrong,
Yeah.
but her overall suspicion is, in fact, correct. I
Yeah.
think there was a lot of that with Trump supporters, where it's just like, listen, man, you framed him for treason for 3 years of his
Yeah.
presidency. Then you shut down the economy, and that was totally, partially at least, to ruin his economy for his re-election year. Then you were totally supporting the riots that were destroying, you know, like you were just causing chaos. Then you overhauled the way we do votes, and you killed his big October surprise story by censoring it off all the social media sites. And now you're telling me the most unimpressive senator in the history of America, Joe Biden, got 80+ million votes. He got more votes than Obama in 2008. Really? Like, this just smell. But that is not something you
not
can
enough.
take to court.
Right. That's not something you can say definitively as a fact and defame people and slander people.
Right.
And that's where Giuliani's fucked, right? Giuliani got hit with a huge lawsuit. How much was it? Like 150
I don't
million?
remember. It was a lot. But also Rudy Giuliani is a lawyer. Like, he should know that, like, you kind of can't say that unless you got something to really present.
And the
was
way
it
you should
Powell
say it is
said-
by presenting the evidence. You shouldn't even make claims. You should probably just present the evidence.
Well, they were saying, I mean, Sidney Powell, I think that's her name, right? And Giuliani.
$148 million damages verdict adds to Rudy Giuliani's over his legal lies about 2 Georgia election workers. So what did he say that these ladies did?
So this is a defamation suit?
It must be. What did he say that they did? Defamation case brought by 2 former Georgia election workers marks a new low point for the man once lauded as America's mayor, whose advocacy of Donald Trump's false election claims led to criminal charges and hefty legal bills. What did he say that they did? What did he say? What did he say? Let's find out what his statements were. See if you can find it.
Remember when Ron Paul destroyed Rudy Giuliani on the debate stage?
Here it says Giuliani
This is different, I think.
accuses him of participating in a wide-range conspiracy to thwart the will of Georgia's voters who had selected Democrat Joe Biden over Republican incumbent. He faces 13 charges, including violation of Georgia's anti-racketeering law, the federal version of which was one of his favorite tools as a prosecutor in the 1980s. That's crazy. Because he's the one who took out, like, the mob.
Yep.
Jesus Christ. So, but let's find out what he said, if we can. I'm interested.
Isn't it annoying that they make it so hard to find, like, the actual thing?
Yeah, lies he spread about them that upended their lives with racist threats. Well, what were the lies? What did he say? When it says upended their lives, click on that link. See what it says. Georgia election worker suing Rudy Giuliani tells jurors that his lies made her fear for her life. So what the fuck did he say? Repeated false claims about her and her mother, saying that they were engaged in changing votes. I personally cannot repair my reputation at the moment because your client is still lying on me and ruining my reputation further, she told Giuliani's lawyer. She sobbed. She testified that her life was turned upside down by the accusations, though they were quickly debunked by state officials. Her attorneys displayed a few of the graphic messages accusing her of treason and more that she received after Giuliani in December of 2020 falsely accused workers at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta of tampering with ballots. Yeah, you gotta have real evidence if you want to say something like that.
And again, Rudy Giuliani is a lawyer. Like, he should know, you know.
California's only reported 54% right now, so that's somewhere in the range of 9 million plus votes. But that's the biggest.
Always room
missing.
for improvement.
Oh, so far still? Yeah. How do they not count it all?
Only
up?
54%.
Yeah, I don't know.
at
This
this
is
point.
updated too.
How are they? Why are they so slow? They suck at everything over there now.
85 for Nevada, 73 or something for Washington, Oregon 62%. So they still have a lot to go up there.
All right, so we'll see what these numbers look like.
But at the end of the day, so there might still be more millions. So it might get close to the 80 million mark. I'd be interested to see. Because then that's a misleading chart. I didn't know that there were so many that hadn't turned in their votes yet. That doesn't surprise me about California. Get your shit together, you fucking dorks.
Yeah, they can't do anything.
They're charging 14% in state taxes, then another 1% if you live in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, you get hit with another 1%. Dude, that's like agent and manager fees. You know?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like, you make a good amount of money. Like, let's say you make $100,000 a year, you have to pay $140,000 to the government for what? For what? And if you move to Tennessee, zero. Move to Texas, zero.
And they wonder why people are flooding out of their state by the hundreds of
And
thousands.
you can't even count the votes in time, you fucking knuckleheads. Like, what are you doing?
No, they can't do anything.
It's such a goofy state, just overburdened with regulations. You can't even have flavored vapes anymore. Little Billy's hooked on the strawberry mist. You gotta take it out of the store to protect my little Billy. It's the strawberry. You can't have flavored zins.
Well, and isn't it so, like, the whole, like, war on tobacco, which I guess takes on tobacco, but the whole, like, you know, like, crackdown on smoking and everything that kind of happened in my lifetime it's really, really wild when you take into account all the stuff that Bobby Kennedy talks about. You're like, yeah, but we're, like, the most unhealthy country. And you took away, like, yeah, a lot more people used to smoke cigarettes, and cigarettes aren't good for you, sure, but we were a healthier country when people were smoking cigarettes.
Congratulations, my little Billy. Do you ever use Zins?
Occasionally.
No, these are Lucy's. These are espresso flavored. This is contraband in California.
Are these, are these the Tucker Carlson ones?
No. This is another kind of Lucy's. These are breakers. They have a little thing there, you break it. Gives you flavor. This is called. Like down, chew on it. Oh, it's legal in California. Right here,
Yeah, this doesn't seem like it should be illegal.
No, if you want flavor, you have to have that and a stick of gum. If you live in California, you can get your cinnamon gum, and you can chew your cinnamon gum with your fucking no flavor Zin, and you can have a nice little experience, almost like you have a cinnamon Zin. But you're not allowed to have a cinnamon Zin because you're too much of a fucking baby. You can't control yourself.
Well, it's like,
No
even
gambling
outside,
either.
dude, I mean, you know, I'm on the road all the time. Yeah, right. And you go throughout this whole country, and it's like, yeah, people don't smoke anymore. That was effective. I mean, not like the way they used to. You know, there's not people smoking cigarettes like that.
No.
But every single town I go to in this entire country has an Arby's and a Burger King and a KFC and like they have every single. They have nothing else. They have every single type of fast food. And you look around and like everybody's obese. Everyone's unhealthy. I mean, when you rattle off, you know, when Bobby Kennedy gave that speech when he threw his support behind Donald Trump, you know, I was watching that with my wife and my mother-in-law, and they both like have tears in their eyes as he's just reading down the stats of how unhealthy we are as a country. It's just, you know, man, one thing, and I'm really, really glad that Bobby ran for president this year, and I'm really glad he ended up throwing his support behind Trump, and hopefully he gets a really important position in there. But the one thing that I almost felt like you couldn't argue with him, that even if you don't blame the same culprits that he blames, which is what they love to say, it's like, how is everyone not talking about this? How is this not an issue that every single presidential candidate has to address?
It's killing people.
Yeah, and our
killing
kids.
It's killing kids, and it's making people way more vulnerable to a host of other diseases, including cancers. It's terrible for you. Cardiovascular, like the 77%, I think Bobby said, 73% of all American boys are not eligible for the military. So they are unfit to serve because they're either obese or they have a host of these metabolic conditions that have come about from poor diet.
Yeah.
And from poison, from eating poison. Essentially, you're slow dosing your body with poison and sugar all day long, and that's most people. And we don't do anything about that, but then we try to regulate vapes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're feeling
Do you
classy
know,
today, huh?
Do you know Nicole
Nothing like
Shanahan?
embezzlement to bring you to the heights
I
of
haven't
the
met her in
LS
person,
elite.
but
Why
I
do they
actually did a
always
FaceTime
embezzle
with her,
from
and
the
I think Willie B
charities?
from the Ghetto
All
Boys.
these banks they can
Really?
steal from, and they
That's
take
an
the
odd pairing
donations
together.
from the
I
hubs
think
for
she's
Veterans
great.
Fund instead.
I had her on my podcast a couple times, and it's just
Yeah, 77% of young Americans between the age of 17 and 24 are not considered fit for military service. Unbelievable, dude.
Okay, we got ourselves a fancy one.
11
Sabrina
health
Gray,
problems,
big
mental
finance
health,
chief charged with embezzlement
that's to
and
say
burying
substance
whistleblowers
abuse,
under the pool.
education,
Head to her mansion
social
and make
and
sure
behavioral
she knows the
factors,
consequences
criminal
of jumping
records.
bail. We don't want any
U.S.
headlines in
military is
tomorrow's
facing a recruitment
papers.
crisis due to these challenges, as well as a lack of interest among young people. So it's only 11% is like physically so unhealthy that they can't do it. That's obesity, actually. So there's probably a bunch of other conditions other than obesity.
Right.
Mental health issues. I wonder, it says significant factors. I wonder what number that is. I bet drug and alcohol use. Yeah, that's a big. It says 8% drug and alcohol. So I wonder how much mental health is. I bet that's it doesn't say, does it? Let's find out. Because that seems like there's a lot of people out there with mental health conditions. Medical, physical health. Drug and alcohol use 8%, medical, physical health 7%. What does it say about mental health? Mental health weight conditions. Oh, there. 4% mental health, 7% medical, physical only, 8% drug abuse, 11% overweight. Wow.
Dude, she Nicole.
40, look at this, 44% though, more than one reason.
Tickets to the
or
Vendors
condition.
game today.
44,
All
almost
good.
half.
Looking
More
forward
than
to
one of these problems that makes you ineligible.
That's crazy. I was I can't remember what town I was in, but so Nicole
you
Shanahan, who
cocksucker.
I think she's great, and it was really, really interesting. I had her on my podcast twice. Just really, really smart lady. Who
my bad,
really
my bad. Really,
knows
really.
a lot about this stuff. So she sent me this like video that she posted.
Nah, this isn't happening.
And so I'm in a hotel room.
Oh, yeah,
and,
son?
I was there with
You like
my
dance?
my
Fine,
buddy
let's
Rob
dance.
Bernstein, who's a co-host of my podcast, part of the problem. Very, very funny comedian, very smart guy. And so I was texting with him, and we were like on our way to go to the show.
Yeah,
So I was like, hey, meet in the
dumbass.
lobby in 10 minutes. And then I got an Uber taking us to the comedy club. I can't remember where we were. And Nicole Shanahan sends me this video. It was like a video that she put out on Twitter. And I didn't know what it was going to be. You know, she just sent me it, and I just click on it and play it.
Oh, you
and it was just
fucking
about like what
loser.
her family went through with their kids. You know, like illnesses and stuff. And it's like, and it's the most touching video ever. And I'm literally sit down. It's so powerful that I sit down and I'm just watching this whole thing, and I started crying watching it. 'Cause I got kids with health issues really cuts close to the bone for me. But as I'm sitting there just like literally sobbing watching this video, so emotional. And then literally it just dawns on me in the middle of it that I'm supposed to meet my comedian friend in 1 minute in the lobby to go to the show. And I'm just sitting here like, what am I doing? I'm sitting in my hotel room crying about these kids. But anyway, the point of it is that like, hey, look, I don't know enough about this stuff. You know, I know about stuff that I know about. I don't know
Now, she
enough
won't
about
come
this. I really
easy.
shouldn't.
According to gossip,
But if
she
your
spent
argument is that,
5.3 mil
that Bobby
refurbing her
and
painting crew.
Nicole are blaming the wrong
No
culprit.
surprise, she's a
You know, it's not
materialist.
the vaccines,
So maybe if you
it's
start
not
smashing
the
her shit,
the
it might
Wi-Fi,
just
and
piss
it's
her
not
off
the-
enough
like,
that she come
okay,
out.
I don't
Just
know.
watch out for
But
any
like,
security.
what is it then? And why are you not interested in this?
Right.
Why are they the only ones who are talking about this? You're telling me we lead the world in chronic illness, and that's not something that comes up in any presidential election ever,
You aren't
other than when
supposed to
Bobby
be
Kennedy
down
runs
here?
for president?
The hell do
That's
you want?
insane.
You don't think the increase in the number of autism cases is an area we should discover, we should look into, we should investigate? You think that that's all been figured out? Like, why are you so convinced?
And explain. I'm sorry. I'm letting you know that I'm somewhat ignorant on this subject. So just like explain it to me like I'm really, really stupid. Talk slowly. Okay, I can understand where if you're talking about very mild autism, okay, like what we used to call Asperger's, which I guess they don't call it that anymore. But if you're talking about mild autism and you want to convince me that that went undiagnosed in the past, I can totally believe that. There is no way that moderate or severe autism went undiagnosed. It may have not been correctly diagnosed, but you did not notice that. Like, I'm sorry. There's no way. I'm saying there's no possible way that there isn't an increase going on here, because obviously, even in the 1940s or in the 1950s, if someone was non-verbal, they would have noticed that.
Yeah.
They would have noticed that this. You know what I mean? Like
If there
this
was a lot of kids like that in your school, you'd know.
There's no way you would have called it something. Maybe you wouldn't have like understood it the way we understand it today. And thank God people do understand it better. And there's a lot more. There's a lot more tools that are provided. There's a lot more awareness about it. And special schools and things like that. But come on, like. So much of this is it's one of the things that exposes how bullshit our whole system is.
What's your fucking
is when
problem?
you just see that there's no desire to get to the bottom of this. It's like the Trump assassination attempts.
But not only that,
no desire.
There's no desire to get to the bottom of it, and it's about children.
Yeah.
Which are the most vulnerable people that we all should be protecting, because they're so entrenched in this ideology that you have to trust science. And if you're a vaccine denier, you're a bad person. Like, no one's a vaccine denier. What we're saying is there may be a correlation, and there may be something that is investigated that shows has been covered up. And there may be a situation where the vaccine companies have complete immunity to prosecution. They can never be held liable, which was the only way that they could still manufacture these things, because they said that they cannot be safe and effective. They cannot be safe for everybody. There's going to be side effects. If they can't be liable for those side effects, then they would go under. This is what set this whole chain in motion, where when I was treating at 3 vaccines, now it's 72. It's wild.
And it reminds me kind of you remember like when they were trying to push the COVID passports, the vaccine passports, and the logic would just fall apart on its face. Like you're like, wait a minute, you're you're telling me the vaccine is 100% effective. You're saying if you take the vaccine, you can't get COVID or spread COVID. And you're also telling me that the people who are vaccinated in this restaurant need to be protected from the unvaccinated entering this restaurant. That doesn't make sense.
No.
I'm sorry, I'm not a genius, but I can figure out the logic in that is flawed.
Also,
and in the same sense, though, it's like, so what if you're arguing that all these vaccines are safe and Bobby Kennedy's a kook, then why do they need the liability?
Yes. There's also another thing because it went against the science, and it was saying that if you don't get vaccinated, it's going to cause variants, and that's not what they say. What people who study viruses and vaccines say is you do not vaccinate during a pandemic with a non-sterilized vaccine. So meaning if the vaccine you give it to someone, it can still transmit and it can still catch the disease, you're going to cause these variants. And there is a scientific paper that I posted like deep early into the pandemic that said this, and people got so upset at me. I'm like, tell me what this says. What this said, there's virologists that would go on these podcasts that, they'd have to be the people that are willing to step outside the line and say these things. This is not what you ever do during a pandemic, because you're going to create variants. That's exactly what happened. And doctors started blaming the variants of the unvaccinated. But if you go to those doctors, explain to me how that works. There's no fucking answer. It's just a narrative that they were having vaccine good, anything else bad. Ivermectin, you're crazy, killing people, death, blood on your hands. It was all super effective. And it was a way for them to make ungodly amounts of money. And that's what it was. And the quicker we accept that and realize that we're vulnerable to that kind of shit, if we still keep following along the same kind of lines along the day, as soon as we realize that, the better off we all are, all of us.
Yeah, and I think I got here in a kind of similar way to you, which is I think a story for like millions of Americans, is that I never even thought about this issue. I never dove into reading a lot about any vaccine until there was this COVID vaccine. And then I really dove into it and read a lot about it and found out that you guys were lying through your fucking teeth about the whole goddamn thing, and that the whole clinical trials were totally rigged and totally fake, and that you were able to get everybody in the the scientific institutions of our government to all repeat these lies, and then everybody in the corporate media and the political class to repeat these lies. And then when Bobby Kennedy came along and said, well, you know how that was all bullshit? There's a lot of bullshit with these other vaccines. I was like, I'm listening. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
It doesn't seem unreasonable at all. And the fact that they were trying to silence.
Fuck you.
They worked in conjunction with the original Twitter to do that. They silenced the experts. You know, and when that lady from Twitter had to testify in front of Congress, that was amazing. That was amazing. Watch those people grill her. Like, are you a doctor? Like, why are you silencing doctors? Like,
It was the same. That was the same one you had on, right? With Tim Pool.
Yeah.
So, and one of the interesting things about that was, that was great. Still, probably one of my all-time favorite JRE episodes. But it was when they were arguing that like they don't have a bias, and then I think Tim was like, "Yeah, you ban people for like gay or misgendering," and she was like, "Well, yeah, that's hateful," and you're like, "Yeah, but that's a bias. Like that right there is a bias.
That's a bias.
And it's one thing when you're just talking about like whether we're calling somebody a boy or a girl, and then you realize like, oh, you have the exact same thing when it actually comes to like very important medical information about a product that Americans are being forced to use. This is mad.
No matter what you say, they're being forced. They're being forced if they want to fly. They're being forced if they want to work in a place that has more than 100 people. If the workplace mandates it. Forced to get into university. Forced.
And they were implementing in a totally unconstitutional way. They were going through OSHA, through
Crazy fuck!
like just the most blatantly unconstitutional proposal that Joe Biden was going to make it the law of the land that every single business with 100 people or more had to have everybody vaccinated. And it was only because of Donald Trump's Supreme Court that got struck down. And that's something that people who are paying attention remember. And so, like, okay, you can demonize Donald Trump all you want to, but how many millions of Americans were not fired from their jobs, not losing their livelihood because they were pregnant, or were not vaccine injured for a vaccine that they never needed to take? I mean, how many people fell into the category that, like me and you and so many other people fell into, where we got the thing and beat it real quickly before we ever got vaccinated and then just didn't need it. Right. And then it just didn't make any sense. Even with the information we had about the vaccine back then, which we have a lot more now, but even back then, I mean, you looked CNN's doctor right in the eyes, where he goes, "Well, are you going to get the vaccine?" You go, "No, I just beat COVID. Why would I need to?" And he had no answer for you. He had no reason why. There's no compelling reason why you should.
They wanted me to join the team.
That's it.
That's all it is. Yep. I mean, I had a very intelligent friend that I had a conversation with. You going to get vaccinated now? I go, why would I do that? It was a weird conversation. I go, I beat it in 3 days. Like, I wasn't even that sick, man. Like, I made a video 3 days later explaining, and I got in trouble because I took the wrong medication.
You better move quick.
You guys out of your
He's a
fucking
real
mind?
impatient
Like,
bank robber.
If you were really
Likes to
worried
shoot
about
at tellers
people's
that
health
take
and
too
safety,
long.
when you say,
Not
hey,
every day
what's
we get a
this
Korean mob hitman about to bust a
57-year-old guy
bank.
getting
Grab
over
your
this so
keys and
easy?
get out of here
What's he
now.
doing different? What's he doing different?
And you go, "Oh, he's very serious about his health. Oh, he takes really good care of himself." By the way, you enjoyed me giving the business to Chris Cuomo
Okay,
over?
Tommy Lim is a known campaign member with burglary and paid murder charges.
That was a good one.
Recent addition, but quickly rising up the ranks.
You know, like
Word
when he
is
said,
he's got a
"I've never said
background
that,"
of
and then
bank
they pull up the
robbery
clip,
when
like,
he's not a
immediately.
hitman. And just so happens, I heard the Korean
Shout
mob
out to,
are on their way to rob a bank. Go
crew,
figure.
Because they really had my back on that one.
Yes.
You know, it's not like I didn't send them that clip or anything. Well, that was they in real time had that ready to go.
They had a Jamie too.
Yeah. They had everybody's got a Jamie.
Not
now.
Jamie. There's only one Jamie.
There's only one Jamie, but there's a lot of knockoffs.
Yeah, a lot of knockoffs. But the fact that you checked him in real time and he just had to sit there and eat it, it's just, they were puppets. They were puppets for the system. They were doing it because that was their job. That's how you get ahead in your career. You want to be the main guy at CNN, that's what you do. And that's what they were doing. And now he's not doing it anymore. Good luck to him. I hope he does stay on an independent path and becomes an objective person. He's made some strides towards that, I think. I think he's taken some fucking lumps, and I think you beat the fuck out of him in that debate. That debate was Mike Tyson's early fights. You see that fucking white dude with the muffin top who just gets flatlined in 15 seconds? That's what that was.
Look, man, and it's not really like a comment on me. It's not that I'm so amazing at debates. It's just like the argument here is so weak. But thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not bad at it.
But also,
I'm just right about
the facts were on your side.
Yeah, I mean that's my superpower isn't that I'm like the smartest guy or the best at debates. It's just that like I'm right in what I'm arguing, and that makes it much easier. You know, I got there was an organization that was pitching me on a debate, a 2-on-2 debate, which I don't really like doing 2-on-2 debates. I've done like
too many people talking.
It's too much. Yeah. One-on-one is the way to do it. But they they pitched me this like months after that. I think it was, if I'm not wrong, I think the topic was about whether Joe Biden should drop out of the race or not. And they pitched me that it would be a 2-on-2 debate against two people. I don't remember who were saying he should stay in. And it was going to be me and Chris Cuomo against them. And I told them, nope, no, I will not be on his side. And like, I don't, you know, I'm kind of, you know, yeah, we had our things, gave him a beating. I think he deserved it.
If an alarm set off, the LSPD will be on their way. I don't want those assholes taking all our glory.
On something I agree
Get
with,
in,
but no,
Wrangler,
not
get
the
out.
corporate media guy who was the #1 show at CNN. Like, I'm not on their side. Even if I'm on their side on this issue, I'm against them. And I know that this has probably been a theme of like every single time I'm on this
Am I
show.
hearing sirens?
But I just, and maybe it's a problem myself, I hate them so much. And I really think they deserve it. And it's not just that they lie about everything. It's like they lie about everything, and then they have the nerve to morally judge us. Like, if you just watch even just the last 3 months of the Trump election, they're not in the business of reporting news. They're totally just in the business of making you feel like you're a bad person if you don't fall in line with the regime.
Right.
And, you know, like, it's like all of us know, right? Everybody knows this. America has this giant war machine, right? Like, we're just always at war. We're the most war-hungry country in the world. Even if we're taking a little bit of a break from a war, we'll fight 2 more proxy wars while we do it. America looks back at the 90s, Bill Clinton, as the time of peace and prosperity. We call it peace because we only fought a war in, like, Serbia and had a blockade around Iraq and were, like, bombing the crap out of Iraq with a few other military interventions in there, too. You know, the UN estimated when that Bill Clinton's sanction and bombing regime of Iraq, okay, everyone just thinks of George H.W. Bush's war and W's war, but Bill Clinton was bombing Iraq his whole, and you had a full blockade around the country. The UN estimated that 500,000 children died of starvation or malnutrition due to the blockade. Now, I've heard people argue, by the way, that that number is exaggerated. Maybe it wasn't 500,000, maybe it was only 100,000. So that's the time that we consider peace. When we were just starving 100,000 children to death in Iraq. And you, everybody in the corporate media, are in the business. Every single one of those wars, you've sold them. Everyone, my entire life, the media has sold those wars. And you're gonna morally look down on me? You're gonna judge me? Motherfucker, you're in the business of baby murder. Get the fuck out of here. You're looking down, judging an American because maybe I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, or maybe I dare to question the results of the last election. Fuck you, dude. And man, and it was a challenge debating him because they were playing the clips. You know, even before they played that clip that sunned him because he had said he didn't say that, and then he clearly did. They were just playing the clips of the way they were talking to people during COVID and the pandemic of the unvaccinated, and it's you, Mr. Vaccine Skeptic. You're the reason why this. And man, it was getting me angry. Like, I was just like, all right, I got it.
Is he one for the morgue? Dang, Murph's making a killing out of us. Get it?
That is the nuttiest part. Could you just set someone up for a better, like, let's say, long COVID? Like, let me tell you something. If you get medication injected into your body more than once, you probably had to do it twice. You probably at least had to get 1 booster. And you have some problem, and you're saying this long-term problem is COVID, long COVID. Are you sure? Are you sure? Or maybe that medicine they injected into your body, you got vaccine in it. You don't want to say that, though, because you still want some sort of a job in corporate media, so you have to control the line. You should be very concerned that this novel, before never mass injected, who knows how many different people are going to have a different result from some medication, some terrible fucking weird way their biology interacts with this medication. It's going to cause a horrible side effect. And now you're on ivermectin treatment. That's rich.
And the way he tried to spin it, that he wasn't, but he tried to say, he really should have just thrown it away. He would have done much better for himself in that debate. If you go, listen, I was at CNN, and I kind of just took for granted that they had that would have been very hard. I still would have been harsh on him, but it would have been a different conversation and a different dynamic. What he did was he refused to admit that, and then, and this is really what got me, is that then he started kind of like attacking my motives. Like he was like, oh yeah, no, because I know that, you know, this is probably good for your podcast numbers and stuff, but well, like as if I don't really believe what I'm saying.
Because
I'm just doing this to make money.
They function.
Right.
That's why they're accusing you of functioning that way. They're accusing you of doing things just because you know they're going to be outrageous and get a lot of views.
Which is, but you know, like you know me, I don't do that.
I don't do that.
Yeah, I don't do that. No, I know you don't. I know you
don't.
don't.
I don't do anything based on how many views I have. That's a fact.
Yeah, and you don't like. There is nothing I say that I don't believe. I might be wrong about some stuff, but everything I say, I believe. I'm not like ever saying anything that's just like, oh, this will, you know, like bring in bigger numbers or something like that.
They think that way. That's why he's accusing you.
Yeah,
because like that's a motivation for people that are in that industry. If you're in a mouthpiece for network news, like there's a very narrow window of behavior that you have to operate under. You have to stay inside these lines, and whatever. If you're on Fox or if you're on CBC, NBC, or whatever it is, MSNBC, you have a narrative. They have a narrative in the office. There's a culture. There's a way people think about that, and this is your job. So you're going to do the things that you think are going to get you more ratings. You're going to do the stories that are going to get people more outraged. That's how you're thinking. It's the wrong way to think when you're on the internet.
And they also have there's a real incentive to never consider, like what I said about them being in the baby murder business, because that's, you know, that's pretty rough to think of yourself as that. And, you know, I remember this one time I watched a documentary on abortion, and it was like a very pro-choice. And this was before I had kids. I had so much free time before I had kids.
If I'm going to unwind in front of the TV, that's the last thing I'm going to watch.
I'm a weird guy, Joe. But that's what I do.
I might, though.
But, well, I forget where it was. Maybe on Netflix or something. Well, I was kind of interested in the subject, and, you know, was before I had kids. But I remember I was watching, it had a very pro-choice bent. And there was this abortionist, this abortion doctor, this lady, and she was like, you
should have the money coming.
I've been an abortion doctor for 30 years, and let me just tell you something. There is no moral issue with having an abortion. It's a thing in a petri dish. It's not a human being. But I remember just watching it and being like, well, yeah, but like you better feel that way.
Right.
Because if you even start to entertain the possibility that, what does that make you? Right. So there's this very powerful social incentive for them to like dig their heels in and not admit that like, oh, the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world, with more freedom and prosperity, and cultivated the greatest economy and the greatest, you know, music and literature and just everything that is this superpower. Oh, we presided over the bankruptcy, destruction, and like the devolving into nothing more than a like military industrial complex, big bank, big pharmaceutical, most corrupt nation on earth. And we didn't cover that. We watched all of that happen, and not only did we not cover it, we demonized anybody who covered it. And we were at every, you know, like that's very difficult to ever confront. And it's always just so much easier for human beings to just go, nope, the problem is misinformation, Russia, racism.
They were saying that the number one thing for women was abortion. That was the narrative that was being expressed over and over again. It was the number one issue for them. The number one concern.
What was the only political winner they had?
Hold on, here is no white man. These are flying. That's crazy.
We have he is one of the best on the planet, for sure.
Everybody get down!
It's just like,
oh, I know.
Like, he got me down rabbit hole after rabbit hole. You didn't hear about this? He's like more conspiracy like Kurt. Trying to like enjoy this experience. Being at the comedy club, Donald Trump's like, you're hitting the conspiracy after conspiracy after conspiracy.
Yeah, listen, you get caught on the side of the bar at Mitzi's with Kurt Metzger, you might be in for a night.
And he's looming, he's big giant. Christina Applegate writes, why? Give me your reasons why. My child is sobbing because her rights as a woman may be taken away. Why? And if you disagree, please unfollow me. Kurt says, good news. If she She got all her COVID shots. She's probably sterile now anyway. Also, what the fuck is a woman? Also, could you imagine a child?
Why, hello, how you doing?
And your child
How can I help?
sobbing because they're right to kill
Okay,
babies
my
inside
friend.
them.
I'll take care of the LSPD. Leave it to me.
I don't believe that's true unless you've distorted what we're talking about to that child.